Under the fading sun, by a cracked sidewalk near Oberlin, a beggar knelt, his palms trembling as he stretched them out for mercy. His name was Moyo, 32 years old, skin dark as cocoa, and eyes dulled by life's cruelty. His torn brown shirt clung to his ribs, and his dusty feet bore the marks of walking miles without destination. He was invisible to the world, until that evening. A sleek black Rolls-Royce Cullinan slowed to a stop beside him, its tires splashing muddy water on the street. The tinted window rolled down with a soft hum, and the face of Chief Adebayo Oladimeji appeared. A man every Lagos newspaper had written about, the billionaire philanthropist, industrialist, and face of success. But tonight he looked tired. Chief Adebayo was 65, tall, heavy-set, with kind eyes that had seen both power and pain. He wore a cream agbada embroidered with gold, his wrist gleaming with a gold watch that caught the light of the setting sun. His face carried the calm authority of a man used to being obeyed. Yet something about him, in that moment, looked lonely. Their eyes met. Moyo blinked, unsure if this was real. For a second he thought the old man might mock him or toss coins like others did. But instead, Chief Adebayo leaned forward and spoke softly through the car window. "Young man, when was the last time someone truly saw you?" Moyo froze. No one had ever asked him that. He stuttered, his lips trembling. "Sir, I don't know." The chief smiled faintly. His driver stepped out, opened the back door, and handed him a thick envelope. Adebayo pulled out a bundle of crisp US dollar bills, each note pristine, tied neatly with a golden band. The air around them grew still. People stopped to stare. Vendors whispered. Someone pulled out a phone. Then, without a word, Chief Adebayo extended the bundle to Moyo. "Take it," he said. $10,000. It's not charity, it's purpose." Moyo's jaw dropped. His hands shook violently as he reached out. The bundle was thick and heavy, too real to be a dream. "Sir, I can't take this." "You can," Adebayo replied quietly, "and you must. But promise me one thing." "Anything, sir. Use it to find yourself again." Then the chief smiled, a warm, almost fatherly smile, and the Rolls-Royce glided away into the orange haze of dusk, leaving behind a stunned crowd and one trembling beggar clutching more money than he'd ever seen. Moyo fell to his knees, tears mixed with dirt on his face. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. For the first time in years, hope felt real. As the sun finally disappeared behind the skyline, he whispered, "Thank you, sir, whoever you are." But that night, as Lagos lights flickered across the lagoon and the city hummed with life, fate had already written the next morning's headline, one that would shatter Moyo's world. The morning after the billionaire's unexpected generosity, the city of Lagos woke under a gray sky. The streets were still wet from the night rain, puddles reflecting the restless chaos of horns, footsteps, and impatient voices. The air smelled of diesel, roasted corn, and damp paper. It was just another morning for millions, but not for Moyo. He sat on the edge of a broken bench beside a newspaper stand near Oberlin. His shirt, still damp from yesterday's downpour, clung to his thin body. He hadn't slept. The $10,000 was tucked safely inside a plastic bag hidden under the cardboard he used as a bed. But sleep had refused to visit him, not because of the money, but because of the memory. Chief Adebayo's face had stayed with him all night. The kindness in the old man's eyes, the gentle way he had smiled. the strange heaviness in his voice when he said, "Use it well, my son." It wasn't just generosity. There had been something else, something that didn't feel random, something that almost felt like goodbye. Chief Adebayo found dead in his mansion. The newspaper vendor's shout cut through the traffic like a blade. Moyo's heart stopped. He turned his head slowly, his stomach tightening as he watched a crowd gather around the stand. The vendor, a middle-aged man with stained fingers and a hoarse voice, slapped the fresh paper onto the counter. The headline screamed in bold black letters, "Billionaire Chief Adebayo Oladimeji found dead in his bedroom." The world blurred. Moyo stumbled to his feet, pushing through the cluster of people. His trembling fingers reached for the newspaper. The photograph was unmistakable. That same kind. Wealthy man in the cream agbada, smiling faintly beside his Rolls Royce. The same man who had looked into his eyes just hours ago. "No," Moyo whispered, his throat tightening. "No, that's not true. I just saw him." People around the stand were already gossiping, their voices sharp and careless. "They say it was heart attack, oh. Money no be life. I hear say he donate money to beggars yesterday. Maybe he knew his time didn't reach." Are you serious? Ah, that's strange, oh." Moyo barely heard them. His vision dimmed. The noise of Lagos faded to a distant hum. His heart pounded like a drum as he staggered backward. He clutched the edge of the stand, gripping the damp wood to steady himself. His mind replayed every second of the previous evening. The screech of the Rolls-Royce tires, the splash of muddy water, the slow roll of the tinted window, and Chief Adebayo's voice. Deep, tired, but filled with warmth. "I see you every day here, my boy," he had said. "You remind me of something I lost." Those words echoed now, twisting into something heavier, something almost prophetic. He had given Moyo $10,000 and died the next day. Was it a coincidence? Or had the old man known he was going to die? Moyo's chest rose and fell rapidly as questions stormed his mind. He didn't even notice the newspaper slip from his fingers and fall into a puddle. Hours passed. The sun climbed slowly but never broke through the gray clouds. Moyo wandered aimlessly through the city, his bare feet splashing in shallow water. He passed fruit vendors, office workers, and Okada riders shouting prices, but none of it felt real. His thoughts spiraled between guilt and confusion. What if I had spoken more? What if I had thanked him properly? What if he needed help? By afternoon, he found himself standing in front of the Lekki Ikoyi Bridge, the same place where fate had brought them together. The ground was still wet, and muddy streaks covered the spot where he'd stood the previous day. He crouched down and touched the pavement, his fingers trembling. "Why me?" he whispered. "Why did he give it to me?" A memory flickered, Chief Adebayo's eyes glistening not just with kindness, but sorrow. Moyo realized then that the man hadn't just been helping him out of pity. There was something personal in that gaze, something almost familiar. But how could that be? He had never met the man before. By evening, the story was everywhere. Radio stations buzzed with updates about the billionaire's sudden death. Social media was flooded with old photos of him at charity events, shaking hands with governors, smiling beside celebrities. Everyone called him a man of the people. But there were rumors too, whispers of family disputes, hidden wills, and a mysterious envelope he left behind. Moyo listened from a distance, crouched beside a small roadside food stall. The woman selling akara gave him a curious glance. "You here say Chief Adebayo Dondi?" she asked, flipping the beans cake in hot oil. Moyo nodded silently. "God rest his soul," the woman said softly. "He was a good man. Helped my sister's hospital once. Life no balance." Her words struck Moyo deeply. He looked down at his hands, the same hands that had received the bundle of cash. See, his fingers still remembered the warmth of that exchange. He had planned to buy new clothes today, maybe even rent a small room for a week. But now the money felt heavy, cursed even, like blood money. He clenched his fists and pressed them against his forehead. Tears stung his eyes. "Why me?" he whispered again. "Why now?" The woman's radio crackled faintly behind him. A newscaster's voice filled the air. Family sources confirmed that the late Chief Adebayo had been battling a heart condition for several months. He was found peacefully in his home early this morning. Close aides say he seemed unusually emotional yesterday evening after giving a large amount of money to a stranger near Lekki Ikoyi Bridge. Moyo froze. The radio continued. "The identity of the beggar remains unknown, but witnesses say Chief Adebayo referred to the man as my son." The Akara woman gasped. My son? Ah, what kind of wahala is this one now?" But Moyo wasn't listening anymore. His body went cold. My son. The same words that had been echoing in his mind since last night. He staggered to his feet, nearly knocking over the stool behind him. The woman called out, "Hey, you never pay-o!" But he was already running. He didn't know where he was going. Maybe to the mansion, maybe just away from the confusion. All he knew was that something deep inside him was breaking open. By the time night fell, Moyo found himself standing near a gated street in Ikoyi. The tall, white walls stretched endlessly, guarded by men in black suits. Inside, bright lights and flower arrangements revealed what could only be Chief Adebayo's home. Mourners were entering slowly. Politicians, businessmen, and old friends dressed in black. Cars lined the road. The air smelled of perfume, rain, and sadness. Moyo stayed across the street, hidden behind a tree. He clutched the folded newspaper in one hand and the plastic bag of money in the other. He didn't belong there. Not among the rich, not in this world. Yet something in him refused to leave. Through the gate, he saw a large portrait of Chief Adebayo, smiling, calm, eternal. Beneath it were white flowers and candles. Moyo's lips quivered. "Thank you," he whispered. "But who am I to you?" A car horn blared behind him, and he stepped aside. The street lights flickered briefly. For a moment, he thought he saw something. A faint silhouette near the mansion gate, shaped like the old man himself, watching him with that same sad smile. Moyo blinked, and the vision was gone. But his heart pounded wildly. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew one thing: his life would never be the same again. The rain began again, soft and steady, as he whispered into the dark. "Chief Adebayo, why did you call me your son?" The next morning broke with a soft haze over Lagos, the kind that dulled the city's chaos but couldn't quiet it. Buses still screamed through puddled streets, Denfo conductors cursed through the mist, and the air smelled faintly of rain and diesel. Moyo sat by a buka near Falomo Bridge, nursing a plate of cold beans and plantain. His clothes had dried, but his spirit hadn't. The night's rain had left him sore and shivering, yet what haunted him wasn't the cold. It was the man behind the tinted glass. The same face, the same eyes. Even after years, he could still recognize them. Chief Adebayo Oladimeji. Moyo hadn't seen his father in more than 20 years. Not since the day his mother died on a hospital bed while Chief Adebayo was signing contracts in Abuja. The image of that moment lived deep in him, a young boy gripping his mother's lifeless hand while nurses whispered, "Where's the father?" He never came. Now that same man had rolled down a tinted window to stare at him, and Moyo couldn't decide if it was guilt or confusion that filled those tired eyes. The buka's owner, Mama Nkichi, dropped a glass of water beside him. "Now who vex you this morning? You don't chop like say you dey fight the food." Moyo forced a smile. "Nothing, Mama, just tired." She squinted. "You done tired since last year. You better find wet and go wake your spirit again." He wanted to tell her that spirits didn't just wake. Sometimes they needed resurrection. By noon, the city dried up. The sun returned with vengeance, baking the damp streets. Moyo wandered aimlessly, his old sandals scraping against the asphalt. His mind replayed the moment over and over. The Rolls Royce, the rain, the look from the window. He could still hear the voice that followed it. "Moyo?" Just one word, soft, unsure, but heavy with recognition. He'd turned instinctively, but before he could respond, the window rolled up again. The car had driven off, leaving only a muddy splash and the ghost of a name that still held power over him. He ended up at the waterfront by evening, staring at the Lekki horizon where skyscrapers kissed the orange sky. Children played football near the sandbanks. Lovers held hands under umbrellas. And there he was, a man in his 30s who had once dreamed of becoming an architect, now building castles in his mind because the world had taken the real tools away. A group of young volunteers passed by, distributing food packs to the homeless. One of them, a woman with a bright yellow hijab and kind eyes, stopped beside him. "Brother, you go like small food?" she asked with a smile. Moyo hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you." As she handed him the pack, their fingers brushed. Soft, fleeting. She tilted her head. "You look familiar. You dey live around here?" "Sometimes," he said quietly, "when the rain know too much." She laughed softly, sadness hiding beneath it. "You get name?" "Moyo." Her eyes widened slightly, though she didn't say why. "I'm Halima." They exchanged a few more words before she moved on, leaving Moyo staring after her. Something about her smile felt grounding, like sunlight breaking through thick clouds. For the first time in days, he didn't feel invisible. That night, he lay under the bridge again, holding the food pack she'd given him. The moonlight sliced through the gaps above, lighting the damp cardboard around him. He pulled out the envelope from his pocket, the one he'd carried for years. It was a letter his mother had written before she died. He unfolded it gently, though the paper was already fragile from time and moisture. The ink had faded, but her handwriting still spoke to him. "My son, if you ever see your father again, don't let bitterness bury you. We are not defined by who left us, but by what we choose to build from the ashes they left behind." He closed his eyes, clutching the letter against his chest. The words stung, not because they were painful, but because they were too forgiving for a world that had been anything but kind. He remembered being 13, standing at the gate of Chief Adebayo's mansion with that same letter in his pocket. The guards had laughed. The housemaid had turned him away. He had walked back to the slum that night, hungry and crying, his mother's ghost whispering, "Forgive him someday." But forgiveness had never felt this heavy. The next morning, a black SUV pulled up by their bridge again. This time, it wasn't a Rolls-Royce. It was simpler, official-looking. Two men in suits stepped out. "Are you Moyo Olademeji?" one of them asked. Moyo froze. The name felt foreign on his tongue. "Who's asking?" The man exchanged glances with his partner. "Chief Adebayo sent us. He wants to see you." Moyo's breath hitched. "Why?" "He's sick," the man said softly. "Very sick." For a moment, the city's noise disappeared. The honking, the shouting, the chaos. Everything muted, leaving only the pounding in his chest. "I don't have anything to say to him," Moyo muttered. The man nodded. "That's your choice, but he keeps calling your name." They left him with a business card. Adebayo Holdings, Victoria Island. Moyo stared at it for a long time before slipping it into his pocket. For 2 days, he couldn't decide whether to go. He roamed the streets, helping vendors pack up after the rain, sitting silently at bus stops. He imagined the mansion again, marble floors, chandeliers, laughter that never reached him. But then he remembered his mother's letter. On the 3rd day, he boarded a bus to Victoria Island. The mansion looked exactly as he remembered, grand, intimidating, and painfully familiar. Tall white pillars, marble floors, a gate that gleamed like new money. The guards looked at him strangely when he said his name, but after a call, the gate opened. Inside, the air smelled of polish and age. Paintings lined the corridor. The ticking of a wall clock echoed through the silence. A nurse led him to a large study filled with books and mahogany furniture. Sunlight streamed through half-drawn curtains. And there, seated behind a massive desk, was Chief Adebayo. Thinner, older, but unmistakably the same man. His face softened when he saw Moyo. "You came." Moyo stood at the doorway, his voice low. "You sent for me." Adebayo smiled weakly. "I didn't think you'd answer." Silence stretched between them, heavy, trembling. The father's eyes glistened, the son's hands clenched. "I owe you more than an apology," Adebayo whispered. "I owe you a life." Moyo swallowed hard, his throat tight. "You can't buy time back." "I know." Adebayo coughed, the sound frail and painful. "But maybe I can still give you something that means something." He pointed weakly to a small envelope on the desk. "Take it." Moyo hesitated, then reached for it, his hand trembling as he did. Inside, he found a foundation document, the Olademeji Foundation for the Homeless. Moyo's heart twisted. He looked up at his father, the man who had once abandoned him, now trying to redeem himself through the son he'd lost. For the first time, he didn't feel anger. He felt something far quieter, an ache that might one day become forgiveness. Adebayo's eyes shimmered. "For the forgotten," he said softly. "For you." Moyo nodded, tears welling up. "Then let's build it together." Baba. And for the first time in 30 years, father and son shared silence that didn't hurt, just peace. The following weeks felt like walking through borrowed time. Every morning, the mansion smelled faintly of medicine and roses. The nurses came and went quietly. And Chief Adebayo, once a man whose voice could fill boardrooms, now spoke in whispers. His illness had stripped away power, wealth, and pretense, leaving only the fragile human beneath. Moyo stayed, He told himself it was temporary, that he was there only to settle whatever unfinished business his father had started. But every day he stayed, something inside him shifted. Not forgiveness exactly, but curiosity. He found himself exploring the mansion like a museum of memories he was never allowed to touch. Photographs lined the hallway, charity galas, business summits, smiling politicians. But in all of them, Moyo was missing. Until one afternoon, he discovered a smaller frame tucked in a corner of the study, an old fading photograph of a young boy holding a toy car. He knew that face. It was his, taken on his 7th birthday. He turned it over and found his mother's handwriting on the back. For Baba from Moyo. He sank into the leather chair, heart tightening. All these years he'd imagined his father had erased him. But this single photograph, hidden and worn, told a quieter truth. Maybe Adebayo hadn't forgotten. Maybe he'd simply run from what remembering cost. One evening, Moyo walked into the study to find Adebayo sitting by the window, looking out at the garden. The sunset painted the sky gold and orange, lighting his frail face with a kind of peace. "You kept that picture," Moyo said softly. Adebayo turned, slow but deliberate. "I kept everything your mother ever touched." He paused, then added, "including the regret she left me with." Moyo said nothing. He couldn't. The old man gestured to the chair beside him. "Sit, please." They sat in silence for a while, father and son, separated by decades, now bound by the weight of what they didn't say. "I failed you," Adebayo said finally. His voice cracked like paper. "When your mother died, I couldn't face what I'd done. I thought building empires would make the guilt smaller." He exhaled slowly, his eyes glossy. "But the truth is, the higher I climbed, the lonelier it became." Moyo stared at the floor. "You had choices, Baba. You chose not to be there." "I know." Adebayo nodded, the admission fragile but firm. "But if you can find it in your heart to let me do one thing right before I go, let it be this foundation." He leaned back, his breathing heavy. "I want it to carry your name, not mine." Moyo looked up, startled. "Mine?" "Yes. The Oladimeji Foundation for the Homeless. It will belong to you. To the boy who learned to survive what I created." The room went quiet again, filled only by the faint hum of the air conditioner. For the first time, Moyo felt the sincerity in his father's words. Not the kind born from guilt, but the kind carved from clarity. The understanding that redemption is never clean. Over the next few weeks, Moyo found himself buried in plans, documents, and blueprints. The old architect in him, the dreamer he once was, began to stir again. He sketched layouts for shelters, reading rooms, kitchens, and dormitories. He visited old friends who worked construction and convinced them to volunteer their time. Every brick he imagined carried meaning. Every wall he drew whispered, "For the forgotten." And sometimes when Adebayo had enough strength to sit by the study window, Moyo would bring him the drawings. The old man would nod approvingly, a faint smile tugging his lips. "You always had your mother's hands," he said one day. "She used to design clothes the same way." "With purpose." Moyo smiled faintly. "I didn't think you remembered." "I remember everything I was too proud to admit," Adebayo whispered. "It's pride that ruins men, Moyo. Don't let it ruin you." But time is never generous to the dying. One morning, Moyo woke to find the mansion unusually quiet. The nurse met him at the door with red eyes and trembling lips. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. he passed in his sleep. The words hit like a wave, not sharp, not sudden, but deep and consuming. Moyo stood still for a long moment, the world fading around him. Then he walked into the study. The room was as it had been, neat, orderly, sunlit. On the desk lay a sealed envelope with his name written in shaky handwriting. He opened it slowly. Inside was a short note. "My son, if love was something I could have learned sooner, it would have been your mother who taught me, and you who reminded me. Build something that outlives the pain. In the end, that's all legacy is, the peace we leave behind." Baba Moyo sat there for hours, his tears falling silently on the paper. A month later, the old mansion felt like a construction site of dreams. The same gate that once turned him away now opened for workers carrying paint buckets and cement. The sign on the new building read, "The Adebayo Foundation for the Homeless." Every day Moyo arrived early, in a clean white caftan, sleeves rolled up, to lift, to build, to guide. The media called it a billionaire's son building hope from ashes. But to him, it wasn't a headline. It was healing made visible. Halima, the volunteer in the yellow hijab, became one of the first to join the team. She often caught him staring at the half-finished walls with that faraway look, a blend of grief and quiet pride. "You think he'd be proud?" she asked one afternoon. Moyo smiled softly. "He already is. He just waited too long to show it." Weeks turned into months. The foundation neared completion, a bright yellow building standing tall in the heart of Lagos, with open windows and children's laughter echoing inside. And on the morning of the grand opening, the sun rose higher than it had in weeks, scattering golden light across the compound. Reporters gathered, the street filled with locals, children and families, once homeless, now dressed in fresh clothes provided by the center. A white banner fluttered in the breeze, "For the forgotten," from a father who found his son too late. Moyo stood before it, holding the ribbon and scissors. His white agbada glowed in the morning sun, his blue cap neat against his clean-shaven head. For a long moment, he just looked up at the sky, eyes glistening. He thought of the bridge, the rain, the man who had left him, yet somehow found him again at the end. Then with a deep breath, he cut the ribbon. Cheers erupted, balloons rose, drums beat. But through the noise, Moyo felt only peace, a stillness that had taken 30 years to arrive. As children swarmed him with gratitude, he whispered under his breath, "Thank you, Baba." The wind that passed felt warm, almost like a hand on his shoulder. And though he couldn't see it, somewhere in the gentle shimmer of sunlight above, a familiar voice seemed to echo, proud, steady, free. The grand opening of the Adebayo Foundation for the Homeless had ended hours ago, but the echoes of laughter still floated faintly in the night breeze. Colorful balloons clung to the fence, the air heavy with the smell of jollof rice, rain-soaked sand, and fresh paint. Children's laughter had turned into quiet dreams, and the reporters had gone. What remained was silence, a calm that felt almost sacred. Moyo stood alone outside the building, barefoot on the cool pavement. The streetlight above flickered gently, casting a warm golden halo around him. He wore a white caftan, simple yet dignified, the same shade his father had loved. The soft fabric swayed as the night breeze brushed by. He clasped his hands in front of him, gazing up at the night sky. That same Lagos sky that had once watched him sleep under the Lekki Ikoyi Bridge. But tonight it was different. It no longer felt like the sky of a forgotten man. It felt like the sky of someone who had been seen, loved, and remembered. The building behind him glowed with soft yellow light. The sign above the door read boldly, "The Oladimeji Foundation for the Homeless." Below it, in smaller letters, was the phrase Chief Adebayo himself had written in the letter Moyo found months earlier. "For those the world abandoned, may they find a father in us." A single tear rolled down Moyo's cheek. He smiled through it, whispering to the air, "Baba, it's finished, just like you wanted." Earlier that day, the foundation's opening had drawn people from all walks of life. Reporters had crowded the compound. The governor had sent a representative. Old women had sung songs of joy. Moyo had stood before the ribbon, scissors trembling in his hand. As he cut it, the crowd erupted in applause, but his heart was elsewhere, remembering the man he never truly knew, the one who had given him life, abandoned him, and then somehow given him everything. When the ceremony ended, a little boy, no older than 10, had tugged on Moyo's sleeve. "Uncle, sir," he said shyly, "are you the man who built this place?" Moyo smiled, kneeling beside him. "Yes," he replied softly, "but it wasn't just me. It was someone who loved you before he even met you." The boy's eyes shone with curiosity. "Who is that?" Moyo looked up at the sky, his voice gentle. "My father." Now, hours later, that memory lingered like the aftertaste of rain. Moyo walked slowly toward the edge of the compound. The pavement was slick, reflecting the dim glow of the streetlight. He tilted his head back again, searching the heavens for answers. "Why did you wait so long, Baba?" he whispered. "Why didn't you come for me when I was hungry, when I was cold, when I slept beside the gutter?" His voice cracked, the words catching in his throat. "Why did you only find me when it was too late?" Silence. Then as the breeze picked up, a golden shimmer danced across the sky, faint but distinct. Moyo blinked, his heart quickening. For a moment he thought it was just a trick of the light. But then the air beside him seemed to bend, and out of the night a figure began to form, soft, translucent, glowing faintly in gold. Chief Adebayo. He appeared just as Moyo remembered, tall, dignified, with the same cream agbada, his cap slightly tilted. His eyes, warm and kind, were full of something deeper than words could express: pride, sorrow, and love. Moyo gasped, taking a step back, his breath caught in his chest. "But Baba?" he whispered. The figure smiled faintly. His lips didn't move, but Moyo heard the voice as clearly as if it echoed from inside his soul. "You've done well, my son." Tears flooded Moyo's eyes instantly. "Why?" he asked again, shaking his head. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "You left me with nothing." Chief Adebayo's expression softened. The light around him flickered gently like a heartbeat. "Because I was ashamed," the voice said. "I thought power and money could fill the emptiness. But every night I saw your mother's eyes in my dreams, the eyes of the woman I failed, and the child I lost." Moyo's lips trembled. "You think this," he gestured around at the glowing building, "makes up for that pain?" The figure's eyes glistened. "No, nothing can, but it can heal others. And maybe, through that, it can heal you." A soft wind swept through the compound, making the palm trees sway. Somewhere in the distance, thunder murmured faintly. Moyo wiped his tears. He could feel the anger and grief inside him melting into something else, something lighter. He whispered, voice breaking, "I forgive you, Baba." The ghostly figure smiled, radiant now. "Thank you, my son. You have broken the curse. You turned my shame into grace." The breeze around Moyo grew warmer, the golden light brighter. Then slowly the figure began to fade, not vanishing completely, but merging with the night sky, like a star joining the heavens. "Wait!" Moyo called, reaching forward. "I'm always here," the voice whispered. "Every time someone finds hope under this roof, I'll be there." And then he was gone. Moyo sank to his knees, his palms pressed against the wet pavement. He wept, not out of pain, but release. His tears fell freely, mixing with the dust, the rain, and the memories. For the first time he felt light, truly light. He looked back at the building, its windows glowing warmly. Inside, the children slept safely. The orphans, the abandoned, the forgotten. They were no longer alone. He stood wiping his face. The sky above sparkled with 1,000 stars, each one brighter than the last. And for a fleeting second, he saw one star shine a little more intensely, like a wink. Moyo smiled faintly. "Good night, Baba," he whispered. He turned to walk back inside, his white caftan brushing softly against the steps. Behind him, the banner swayed in the gentle night breeze, a final whisper of love and redemption. For the forgotten, from a father who found his son too late. Thanks for watching. What's your view about this story? Where are you watching from? Do well to let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories. Stay blessed.